founders want to know what great looks like, it's
Yeah.
that. People in the room sharing ideas and helping each other win, and you're all evaluated on that global effort.
Keep everything publicly in the relevant channels and don't go into DM, because what you and the developer might be talking about could be really relevant to the marketer or the sales rep.
I'm a solo entrepreneur now, and I've had to use this phrase quite a bit. Don't borrow someone's ending to explain your beginning.
You've just landed on Unfair Advantage, the show for lean teams who want to scale without the bloat, the burnout, or the BS.
Each week, we go live with founders, marketers, and operators solving the hard stuff. AI workflows, scrappy go-to-market plays, and ideas your team will actually want to get across.
While your competitors are still figuring it out, you're getting the unfair advantage. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to Unfair Advantage, the live show for lean teams chasing real growth. Let's start with this. If your team's been tweaking button copy and calling it experimentation, you're probably stuck. And most teams are in this place. Today's guest sets it straight. A/B testing is the wrong starting point for lean teams. It's slow, resource hungry, and honestly, it's distracting you from the bold bets that actually grow revenue fast. Rhys Mohun is here to change that. He's an e-commerce growth consultant and the founder of Formentor Labs. And before that, rebuilt Intuit Canada's testing culture, making experiments faster, safer, and a whole lot more useful. We're about to dive into the real experiments that lean teams should be running before they even touch an A/B test. And if you've ever felt like you don't have the traffic, tools, or buy-in to test well, this one's for you. Drop your biggest test challenge in the chat, one bold idea that you want to test but haven't yet, and we can also bring your questions to Rhys later on in the show. Welcome, Rhys.
Hey, Melody. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on, and we've been chatting about this before, and I just love this topic so much because I think A/B testing is such a misunderstood topic. I'd love you to introduce yourself a little bit, and before we dive in.
Sure. Oh yeah, you did a pretty good job. On the personal side, I'm here in Toronto, cheering on the Blue Jays as against all odds. We seem to be maybe doing it this year, as of this recording. Anyway, I don't know how this is going to sound in a couple of weeks. I'm a girl dad, 2 young girls at home, 5 and 3. So I know we're up a bit early right now, but I'm no stranger to crack a dawn with the young kids. Grew up in Canada, bit of a sci-fi nerd. My wife and I are pretty big foodies, and I can cook. I can back that up. And then I got started professionally. Got started in startups. I always wanted to build my own business, be a bit of an entrepreneur, and the closest I think I could get to that was sort of on the ground at early stage startups. So I was sort of employee number like 7 and a few of these startups. Took them to Series A couple times, and then wanted to know what I was building towards. I knew what early stage growth looked like, but I honestly, until you do it, I didn't really know what I was building up to. And so I joined Intuit, which is a massive, obviously experiment-based organization here in Canada. And as you said, I did the best work of my life helping rebuild the experimentation program there in Canada, which was massively successful, best work I've ever done, super rewarding, and led me here to do that same thing for clients at Formentor Labs.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us for all the way from Canada. I think it's like 7 a.m. there for you. So
yeah, it is.
Awesome. Well, let's get right into it. I'm really excited to get started. So first of all, like, this whole topic is about really experiments that actually work. And when it comes to experiments, I'm wondering, what are the things that lean teams are getting right, and what do they tend to get wrong?
Well, if they're experimenting at all, first of all, kudos. You should be. That's great. An experiment can be anything really, where you're putting something out into market, being a little bit vulnerable, and being willing to change your mind. That's an experiment at the lowest level. If teams are doing that, they're onto something. Trouble is, this is a technical space, right? This is a fairly complex space, and there's a lot of math behind it. It's not scary math. You do have to understand the dynamics. And if you're asking what teams, especially lean teams, earlier stage, may need to reconfigure a bit, it tends to be that they rush towards the most acceptable, most approachable format of testing, which is A/B testing. A/B testing is the workhorse. It's not going anywhere. It's approachable and easy to understand for a reason. There are probably, 1,000 tools, who's counting, that help you run A/B tests. That's great. But it's a middle step. A/B testing is a validation step to take an idea that you've incepted and put that in the market and test it and see how it goes. But the fact that you're testing anything at all, especially a fresh idea, it doesn't belong in a split test. It belongs in earlier stage research and evidence gathering. So what are lean teams probably missing? Earlier stage stuff. They're probably missing the customer interviews. They're probably missing some of the research you could be doing to build a better prototype that belongs in an A/B test. That makes that more efficient. My favorite example, I get a laugh out of this, but A/B tests are like the Honda Civic of experiments. They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They work, but they're not meant for everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
could you plow a field with a Honda Civic? I bet you could. Probably take some work, take forever.
Yeah.
You need help, but you could probably do it. It's the same thing with A/B tests. They're not designed for that. Like, could you take a Honda Civic around a racetrack? You could. You wouldn't win, but you could. And that's my point is there are all sorts of different experiment models you could be using for the right stage of your growth. But if you're using just A/B tests or Honda Civics to do the job, it's a slog. So I'm here to sort of shed a little bit more light on like there's way more out there for lean teams. I hope you can take something actionable away from this. I promise there's a couple nuggets in here. I would start. Let's go there. I would start with empathy first. That's where you have to lean in is your customer empathy. If you will, like I have a phrase for this. Like the reason this is so ubiquitous is what I call the 1,000 failure fairy tale. It's perpetuated by big tech. It's out there. It works for them, but I'm finding certainly in my conversations at earlier stage, it's very damaging in terms of what people expect to get out of experiments. So the 1,000 failure fairy tale is basically, we've all heard it. Amazon, Facebook. I would know. I worked at Intuit. Intuit was one of the top experimenting orgs in the world. It's the premise that on one hand, we have to run 1,000, smaller experiments to get like a single winner. But at that scale, it's still affordable and efficient for them to grow. And that's a boast is what that is at the end of the day. When you pair that with the other claim that, hey, anyone at our org can run an experiment. You've heard it, like Facebook especially is known for this. Anyone off the street on day one can walk in, or booking.com does this. All sorts of people on the team can run in and set up their test on day one. We allow that. First, democratizing testing is great. There's nothing wrong with the idea of that, but you can't put those two statements together and expect that to make sense. So for example, like imagine if any other industry claimed that anyone off the street could start work and interface with customers or money and yet accept a failure rate of 1,000 to 1. Like Goldman Sachs let someone off the street invest funds, but only 1 in 1,000 makes money. It doesn't work. Restaurants serving tables, like race drivers, if you give anyone keys to the McLaren, but only one makes it back in one piece, like it doesn't work for any other industry, but we accept it in tech. And it's just because of scale. We accepted it in tech because of scale, and we don't really understand what goes on in the back. Yeah. And so I'm here to say, like, you don't have to fail that much. We had a 40% win rate on my team at Intuit because we did the work. We did the early work. We did the customer empathy work. We learned, we listened, we did all the work to build a better prototype that won more often.
Right.
Now we ran larger scale, larger size tests, not 1,000 tiny things. We ran pretty substantial, big, we call it leap of faith assumption, like really big assumption breaking tests. And they win and they make money.
And you can learn faster when you've got a large traffic coming to your website, right? I think
Helps.
with I guess maybe the context behind that is probably you need extended timeframes or large amounts of traffic for A/B tests to consistently work, right?
That's right. And they have that, right? And that's part of the boast. I mean, the reason I say that the 1,000 failure fairy tale is a boast is because it's talking to a few individuals at that point, right? So basically, one, they want to attract smart talent. So imagine being able to say, I want to work somewhere where I can make a difference on day one. That's very attractive and it's effective and it works for them. They attract great talent by letting them say, great, get your hands on the keys. We want to see what you can do. It attracts great talent and that's not going away. Two, it's kind of bragging to investors that no matter what, win or fail, up or down, we're going to grow, right? If we run 1,000 tests and we're used to failing, but we get some winners out of it, that's attractive to investors. You don't want a downside. And B, to competitors, it's a little bit of a shove to a competitor saying, hey, we're agile, we can fix, we've got the big tech stack you don't have. Stay away. Like we're the team that's going to dominate this space, not you, because we can out-test you. So really that statement that like in this company, anyone on day one can walk into the team and test and we're going to fail 1,000 times and we win once. That says a lot, right? It's a big statement. And it's working for big tech. It creates this dilemma for smaller teams going, well, I don't have that ability, so I guess I'm not going to experiment. I'm here to go, whoa, let's pause that. They didn't get there in the beginning either, right? Big tech didn't just start with that infrastructure. They had to build their way. And I'll explain how.
I love that. And I think that's the whole premise of the show, right? We can't follow what the unicorns are saying or what the big tech is telling
Yeah.
smaller.
There's a phrase I use. I'm a solo entrepreneur now, and I've had to use this phrase quite a bit. Don't borrow someone's ending to explain your beginning. Right. On a personal level, it helps because sometimes I've hit my head against the wall. For teams building, it's the same thing. It's really wrong to inherit, the strategies and the mechanisms from larger teams at your earlier stage. They aren't going to fit.
That is so true. So let's go into what test types lean teams should be running.
I have something for you. Should I share? I can probably put this up.
Sure.
Okay. I know this slide is a lot. Here goes. Over here on the left, we want to talk about discovery tests. This is the category of experiment earlier stage lean teams can really dominate, and it helps them build better prototypes. So if you're not already, do it today. A lot of these tools have free tiers that are tremendous in their work, even if you're not paying for them. Hotjar, Optimizely, VWO, I can name them all. There's all sorts of options for you to be running, and you can hook those up today, again, for free. Start gathering the data, and as you get better at it, maybe upgrade your plan. Session recordings to heat maps, for example. Like, what are customers doing on your site? How are they interacting with your product? Where are they pausing? Where are they stopping? Where are they blocked? Those sorts of inferences are enough to help you build a better prototype with some evidence, right? So when I talk about building a better prototype, what's a prototype? It's in science, it's usually physical, but for us, it's digital. It's the thing you're building and constantly improving till you get it to do what you want. It's a landing page, it's an ad, or it's an email for marketers. Typically, that's what we're talking about. So your prototype is your better landing page or homepage than what you have today, but you should be continuously improving it until you put it up for contest in an A/B. So, for example, we run session recordings. We talk to by the way, the magic number for customer interviews, this is my favorite usability author, Steve Krug, is 5 to 8. 5 to 8 customer interviews on a single topic is often enough, and he's got this whole chart for it. It's often enough to get the biggest boulders of things you should be working on out of the way. It won't cover every problem, but you're going to see patterns between 5 to 8 conversations with customers when you're saying, hey, how does our pricing strike you? Does this work for you? Is this problem big enough you'd pay this much monthly? And if you talk to 5 to 8 people, that's enough for them to sort of say, yes, no, here's my problem. Multiply that by any topic. Ride-along sessions are great. We did this at Intuit. I don't love the name for this. We called it Follow Me Homes, and now that I hear it, I don't like it. But it means go to the user's place in their space, do their taxes with them, watch them, observe them using TurboTax. We learned so much watching people, especially people outside of our typical. We millennials can be a little bit homogenous, thinking everyone uses the web the way we do. They don't. And so if you are a founder or a team who serves people who aren't just digital natives like we are, there's a lot to be learned about how other users use your program. Believe me, I served 14 million Canadian users at TurboTax, and I had to adopt usability rules for everyone. Everyone had to use our tax software, so we have to acknowledge sort of the lowest common denominator of usability for everyone, and that takes a lot of work, a lot of experiments to get that right. So we went to their homes, Follow Me Homes, went to their homes and observed.
You physically went to their homes. I was imagining doing screen sharing.
Today, I would suggest screen share. The way when I joined into it, the way they did it is they went there. I think screen share is perfectly fine. Now, again, even screen share takes a little bit of sort of like tech savvy, and if you're in a space like tax that people don't necessarily know how to do that, you can't really do it. So you see, that's another area we should poke. I don't have a slide for this, but as you scale up, you're going to find a lot more gold in the segment. So we don't want to guess kind of globally. We want to solve for segments, which means you might find 2 or 3% incremental lift running an experiment on your, form completion rate or your sign up, or if you're B2B SaaS, your callbacks, you might get 2 to 3% lift on something. That's a reasonable amount of growth, but that's going to take a long time to measure. The bigger the lift, the shorter the measure. That's the boldness principle. That'll slow down. Even at Intuit, that'll slow down. My big conversion numbers at Intuit shrank over time, even though I got more money, more budget, bigger team. We got less juice out of the fruit, so to speak, right? What you're going to experience as well is that you want to start solving for individual segments, like it could be by device, could be by product, could be by problem that they have, because suddenly you're going to start seeing things like 40% win rate and 30% win rate because you're solving a more niche problem for that group. Even though it's lower traffic because you're segmenting, you'll get that result a lot faster because it's a much bigger delta. That way outweighs the shortage of traffic because you're only segmenting. that's the transition with teams. Typically this happens at a pretty big growth lever. Like this is more of a Series A pivot, but stop solving globally once you have the traffic and start looking in your segments, and you will absolutely amplify wins because those deltas just magnify.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Early stage, focus on the discovery tests, customer insights, heat map, kind of the usual. And then Series A, validate the solutions, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work to do in between for sure.
But I mean, yeah, we make it sound easy. I love that though. I love that. So yeah, if you haven't done customer discovery, experiments, interviews, probably screen share, take me home tests, then don't go for the A/B test first.
Yeah.
Love that.
You'll launch an A/B test as your ultimate test. You'll launch an A/B test with the best possible landing page you can build based off of all that research. It can have more than one change. You hear this a lot too. If we make more than one change, we won't know what worked. Well, that's why you use a premise. We'll talk about that later too. You can group these things together, and it's absolutely valid to run a prototype built with 6, 7, 8, 9 changes, which will be a stronger prototype, easily measurable. It'll defeat your old one. You'll get some growth. And if you really want to, you can go and do what's called a back test. Hey, what was it that was most responsible for this growth? That's fine. But you can't do it the other way around. You can't inch your way towards growth with failures because it doesn't conclude in time.
So failure, that's like the big scary word, right? You have to fail a few times in order to find success. Granted, not 1,000 times. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how do you create a culture of a team that can buy into bold, unproven ideas and get them to actually experiment?
It's a good question. It's probably the question. I call it being the wrongest in the room. Like any org change, it does have to start with leadership. You have to start this. There's really no other way. Leaders don't want to make every decision. We know that. And yet, in order to instill a culture where people feel safe raising ideas that may not be right, you have to let them feel safe in the room to raise their hand and go, hey, I see it differently, right? What people are most afraid of at the end of the day, and we're all data-driven individuals, I know, but like we're still afraid of judgment. We're afraid of looking dumb in front of our peers because that's damaging. It's not silly. Like it's damaging. We want to look like smart. This is why I call it wrongest in the room, because I'm giving you permission to not be the smartest. I've never been the smartest person in the room, so I have no problem talking about this. I've definitely been the wrongest in the room. It's not even my phrase, by the way. The origin of this came to me from a very scary VP I worked with many years ago. My first ever skip level. You're meeting someone many levels above you. And I walk into the room and he goes, there he is, the wrongest guy in the room. And I froze. Oh, I've only been here a couple of weeks. But what did I do? He was congratulating me. He said, no one else knows the answers to the questions you're asking. They're just too afraid to raise their hand. And you asked every question. And thank you. Thank you for making everyone else feel safe to raise their hand. And that really stuck with me. So I don't try to be the wrongest in the room, but it's provocative enough to give leaders the permission to say, here's what I can do. Leaders, you should start saying this more often. I was wrong. Here's what I'm going to do next. Those two things have to go together. You have to talk about it's safe to be wrong, give people permission, and watch you say, oh, it didn't work. The most important phrase to follow is, here's what's next. Here's what I'm following as a premise next, because there's always got to be a next.
Right. I think modeling that for leaders starts with the language that you use. Like, yes, the leaders also don't want to look wrong, but they can use language that creates this kind of safe place. What are some things that you might say?
There's some easy things you can do today. Like there's a lot of things you could change culture-wise, but there's just behaviors you can change as a leader today that would already change the, I don't know, what do you want to call it? The aura in the room that creates more sort of, creative safety for your teams. Saying wrong is great. One thing we really want to start is dropping the idea of idea ownership, like putting a name to an idea. That was my idea. That was your idea. Ideas are kind of commodities these days. You're going to come up with the idea eventually. There's no reason to put a name on it. There's really no upside, by the way, to having names on ideas. It's really all downside. So take names off things, because what that does is, the second thing is, I don't want to hear teams disagreeing with people. Disagree with the premise. Hey, I believe we have an opportunity to grow revenue by doing X and Y. Here's what I think. No, Bob, I don't agree with you. Ugh, that's awful. And Bob digs his heels in, and we're not getting anywhere. But
Yeah.
I know it is, and that's how it feels, by the way. And this is true. Different parts of our brains light up when that happens. Your amygdala based on emotion and safety, as opposed to prefrontal cortex, where critical thinking, going, I don't know. Different parts of our brains react to different phrases, and so try that. Hey, I don't agree with that idea. I don't agree with that. Here's what I think instead. Suddenly, Bob's free to go. Oh yeah, I can adapt. But when you disagree with Bob digs in. So disagree with the premise, don't disagree with the person.
And Bob won't feel coming up with any more ideas vocally.
Well, and that's it. I mean, like Bob might be an idea guy, but the problem is, what if Susan, Sally, Joe in the corner, who's a little shyer, has great ideas, but doesn't feel as safe or as confident as Bob to raise their hand? You're missing out on all that idea flow. You're missing out on great ideas from observers in the room. By the way, I've got a slide for this too. The best ideas come from a couple of really unique places in an org. That's an interesting one. Can I go there? I feel like that's worth investigating.
Absolutely.
So the first place I'd suggest is the reality is the most ideas do come from what we call A players, people in the org who outperform, certainly in idea generation and creativity. Doesn't necessarily mean they're A players like performance wise, but you'll get the same individuals typically who generate the best, most relevant ideas. You need to do something to nurture that, and you need to make sure they feel safe, rewarded, challenged. So look for your A players in terms of idea generation. That's just a stat. Like, we just know that to be true. We also know that people in adjacent areas are excellent at solving problems. So, for example, the classic one is sales, having sales problems solved by support people. For example, they're adjacent. They aren't in sales, but they deal with new customers onboarding. What's happening is they're not limited and jaded. They're not limited by limiting beliefs in the space. You've been there enough. Oh, that didn't work. That won't work. They're not limited by that, and yet they're creative enough because they're close enough to your space. Their ideas are still pragmatic. When you get a little bit too far out, you start coming up with ideas that just don't make sense. But when you have teams who are adjacent to yours, marketing and sales, marketing and product and customer success. I mean, in SaaS, I guess we're all sort of adjacent, but the best ideas tend to come from teams just like elbow room, right? Ask them what they think. Like it or not, AI does come up with decent. I know we always talk AI these days. AI can come up with great ideas, but I wouldn't just go full bore without editing. I would always check first to see. I use AI pretty regularly just to help inform whether I'm missing anything in the corners. What else do I need to come up with? Is this relevant? But I wouldn't. They're doing something now called simulated or synthetic audiences. I don't love it. It's creating a customer persona in your own compartmentalized AI. Just removing the human from the element, and that's the opposite direction. So no, we need to be asking people what they think. So yeah, good ideas come from individuals. They come from adjacent teams. They can be bolstered by AI, and often you'll find the two places you want to look are data anomaly. I got this from Reforge. Data anomalies and user anomalies.
Okay,
it's really great. There's two spots, two things. It's liberating to know there's two spots when you're searching for the next thing to grow your MRR, to grow your e-com revenue. The next thing you can be looking for in the data is something that's anomalous to your funnel, to your data, or towards user behaviors. Hey, that's funny. That user did that, but most people do this. We got to go investigate that. Oh, they're on an iPhone 14. I mean, one of the examples I have from Intuit, talk about segments. We couldn't get our heads around why we just couldn't crack a certain growth lever on mobile. We were totally capped and couldn't figure it out. And so we dove into the segments and dove into user behavior. And lo and behold, I forget the model now, it was a couple of years ago, but one of the iPhone models and the viewport and the size of the screen, they couldn't reach the button. They couldn't scroll down far enough to get to the sign up button or whatever. No matter what, it was a poorly responsive design. And I'm embarrassed to say how long it took us to solve that, but you have to start digging and going deeper and looking in the segments. But the point is, you have to ask. You have to go look and investigate to see. Yeah.
That's so funny. Like the thumb scroll length was just too long.
It was a total forehead slap moment. We're like, oh yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, sometimes those things are such blind spots because you just never make assumptions, I guess. I love that.
No.
So you shared some things that leaders can do already tomorrow or today to start opening that idea of being wrong together, and that's okay. I love also your principles that you were sharing with me earlier on effective experimentation. I want to dig in a little bit about bolder is faster. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Um, that's a delta I mentioned before. I mean, the idea. So let's take an A/B test. That's the easiest one to use. If you want to measure 2% lift, right? 2% lift on something on 100,000 users. I can't do that math in my head, but that's going to take a while to resolve with confidence. So we're talking about statistical significance. That's what everyone's typically afraid of. Like that's the math people are worried about in A/B testing. It's not that bad. What it's trying to say is, can we repeat this result reliably? So an A/B test is any experiment, but an A/B test is a sample, right? It's a sample from our market. We can't ask everyone. Maybe in the future this will change with technology, but for now we can only ask a sample. So we want to know whether that sample is representative of our entire market. Like if we make this change, or we have a new value prop, or we change our prices or features, whatever. If the change that we make is bold enough, we'll see it have an effect in the market, and we want to know whether that effect is us. Did we do that? Or is that just noise in our sample? You know what I mean? Like if you asked a different group of people tomorrow, would you get a different result? That's what statistical significance is doing. It's asking you whether or not you can repeat that result. It's really hard to repeat a tiny result because the market's noisy. It's really easy, and this is the math talking, it's really easy to repeat a big result, like throwing a rock in the ocean. Like, can you see the ripples from a mile out if you throw a pebble versus throw a boulder? Like, you can see the ripples. That's the same thing happening in the math. You can see a big result that much faster, and it will truly resolve. Your test will finish and call statistical significance, although any CROs listening to this will know you don't stop at significance, but you run it for the whole test length. You'll get a result. You'll get a big result rather than an inconclusive one. It's not as common to talk about this. People new to A/B testing may not recognize this. The problem you're going to run into is your tests come out what we call flat, meaning there's no result. We can't detect a change. Mm-hmm. That's a bad result. You shouldn't be running experiments that can even have that result, because you've wasted your time and your customers. There's no learning from a flat test. That's the problem. We talk about learning from failure.
Yeah, from being wrong.
You can't learn from a flat test. You have no result. It's not like you have a bad result. You have no result. I would much rather bomb, and I have many times. I'd much rather bomb and learn and go, whoops, that didn't work. Like, cross that off the list. But when it's flat, you don't know. And so when I say boulder's better, you have to put something massive and big out into the market, a big change. That's why I talk about a better prototype, right? Make 6, 7, 8, 9 changes. Fine. Make it bold so that it resolves better. Win or lose, you'll know faster. That's what boulder's faster means.
Love that. That's amazing. That's just, yeah. I think even just having this conversation with your core team and then connecting the departments together to just keep that learning going. I think that bit there on lockstep learning, is that where to achieve that you actually have to have more decision makers in the room from different departments, or how do you
grab a whiteboard? I mean, I've been in meeting rooms that don't have whiteboards. It blows my mind. Like, how are you supposed to share ideas and draw things out and share unfounded ideas? I mean, you asked me, what can leaders do? Share unbuilt, what do you call it? Like, unformed ideas. It's great to show other people that you don't have to think it through all the way. Be open to criticism and constructive criticism, and throw an idea on the wall. Be the first one to do that. Go, okay, hold on. If pricing's not working like this, what if we put the free tier down here? What if this would work? And share it and be wrong and be critiqued, right? That's great to show that that's okay to be done, and that people are going to help build on ideas. The other part is like being fair and judgment free. So failure is going to happen. Hopefully not 1,000 times, but failure is going to happen. Be graceful, be empathetic in that. Support the effort, not the outcome. That's a critical thing you can do tomorrow. Here, since I've got a platform, I'll share this. If you're a founder and you're trying to start running kind of your first experiments with your team, here's my best advice for you. No matter the outcome of your team's first few experiments, win or lose, whatever, even if it's flat, but even if it's flat, be proud of them. Say, well, hey, look, that didn't work, but I'm really proud of the work you guys put in. This was an awesome achievement. We're starting. This is great. I'm telling you, the number one thing that's going to motivate your team and help them kind of slide gracefully over failures like that is just knowing you support. I'm telling you, they're not looking for a massive 30% lift win right away. You're not going to get it. They're looking for support. They're looking for, agreement. They're looking for acknowledgement of their effort. So my advice is, in the first few experiments, just give them that, like, well done. You got the reps in. This is great. What are you doing next? Let's keep going. And then you can start to add in layers of like, okay, look, we're trying to push this metric. What can we be doing here in this metric? What are we confident in? What's the evidence telling us? We don't want to run frivolous flat tests. What else can we do? But that comes a little bit later. That comes after practice.
I love that. Throw an idea on the whiteboard and be the wrongest person in the room. I think for remote teams, speaking for myself as well, sometimes what we'll do in meetings is put up a Miro board and just have
Yeah,
everyone put their ideas up for 5 minutes, even live, and then talk through them. Or just being
that's great. Yeah,
and starting a Slack thread. And I keep encouraging this, like, keep everything publicly in the relevant channels and don't go into DM
Mm.
because what you and the developer might be talking about could be really relevant to the marketer or the sales rep. And it identifies those gaps in understanding, right? So if there's like
I love that. That's a great idea.
if there's a yeah, I mean, if there's a shared misconception or someone has a misconception, that won't come out unless there is some active and
Exactly.
conversation and the right questions being asked. Um,
Exactly. I love that. Yeah.
awesome.
If this episode's hitting for you, go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps more lean teams find their edge, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.
So yeah, I mean, I think we talked about premise quite a bit. I can't wait to dig into it because it's all about how to set up a strong experiment. Shall we?
Yes. Okay. So here, I'll share this too. Thank you for bringing up premise. Premise. This is something that's solved a lot of problems for me, by the way. So I lean really heavily into this. It's a bit more advanced, but I want to run through it as well because it'll save you a lot of headaches once you begin throwing this into your experiment work as well. What's a premise? In science, a premise is an underlying thing that has to be true for a hypothesis to work. The premise is the thing that is working when we suggest making a change and observing the result. It's the thing behind it, right? Thermodynamics, like water, like science has all sorts of we call them laws, but we don't. Laws isn't the right. I'm not going to get into this, but like in science, aren't laws; they're premises. Like there's things that still work today, but over time they can get disproven, right? So a premise is the thing that we believe to be working behind the thing. In business science and growth, the science we're operating with is human, right? We're not looking at like laws of again thermodynamics. We're looking at, do people behave like this or do they behave like this? And we're always dealing with a population, and the population, it changes. Their behavior is unique to your product. Their behavior is unique to your go-to-market plan, your segments. So the nice thing about following a premise in this space, there's always work to do because your brand or your product won't use all of this. You'll have to go and dig and figure out what works best for you. But Melody, go ahead. Pick a category. Like what area would you dig in? Let's talk about an avatar. Maybe you're a SaaS founder. You're a fintech, let's say, and you're supporting consumers who want to save better. I'm making this up, but like start a premise here. Where would you begin to dig to help support that customer?
I think trust is a big one in fintech, especially early stage.
Trust is huge. In fact, in fintech, we start there. Yeah. Why? Because we're dealing with money. We're dealing with people's hard-earned money. They want to know it's not going to be lost. They want to know it's not going to be scammed. Trust is a big factor for sure. I think we can just say we know that. If we didn't know that, for example, we'd start looking over to the left. We look with trust, which is kind of like the domain of a premise. Is trust the area where we're hurting? We're trying to grow our business. We're growing our signups for this, what do they call it? Savings program. How can we improve our trust? And there are all sorts of categories. We go into what we call like legitimacy, credibility. Do we look real? Do we have an address printed on our site? A lot of companies don't. Are we using stock photos or pictures of real humans? That's a trust element. Do people talk about us? Are there testimonials on the site? Do people know us? Are we accessible? You can get pretty niche. Do you get the little lock symbol on your browser when it shows up to show that you're HTTPS as opposed to, like all these things add up. Now, that savings company might find a lot of growth in experiments that deal with trust. I would suggest they would. A fintech usually will. So what about face cream? If you're an e-commerce brand trying to sell face cream, I'm going to suggest, and again, I'm the wrongest in the room, so don't listen, but I'm going to suggest trust probably has less of a less leverage for you as a face cream brand than, say, for example, like suitability. Like, is this made for me? You are probably going to want to lean harder in. For those of you listening that can't see, there's just a table of the things from left to right that have strength associated with how niche do you want to get on the premise with your customer. If you're selling face cream, I'm going to, again, this is me putting things on a whiteboard. I'm going to suggest we want to look at ingredients, on solution fit, on maybe my skin type is a certain type. And so I want a perfect custom fit for my dermatology profile. I don't know what that's called. I'm going to want to know that the benefits of this cream look different than the benefits of what I'm using today. And I'm going to hypothesize that you're not going to spend as much time experimenting in the trust area. By the way, you need a little bit of that. You got to cover this table a little bit. But what's happening when you do this is you're linking your wins. So for that fintech trying to build trust, as you realize that trust, in fact, is the thing for now that we appreciate, as we learn that trust is the thing holding back our customer signups, don't stop. Like, do the trust thing, see that it worked, tap it, name it, and say, trust is the thing we're pushing on, and then keep going in that category. You will hit a ceiling for your stage of growth. You just have to have unfortunately, you need a bit of experience to know when that's happening. Ultimately, what's happening is your win rate on experiments will begin to shrink because you've kind of hit the sort of local max where you've optimized at that point. There's not a lot more to do, and now you need to go investigate other areas, build a new premise, focus on other areas. Maybe it's usability, maybe it's, like I said, features and suitability, maybe it's brand, maybe it's FOMO, maybe it's status, those sorts of things. Fintech, by all means, there are all sorts of fintech products that offer similar services, but they're targeting different people. So that's a great way to push next. Does our brand attract younger folks, people high net worth? Like, who are we going after? Start finding a premise and developing an idea around that and linking the wings together there. Oh yeah, people respond to this message. They respond to this visual, and link those things together. If you don't, I guess I should start here. If you don't, I think what you're going to find is you're back to the drawing board all the time in your experiment cycles. You're constantly looking for new problems to solve. I think you're going to frustrate your team because they know the problems. After, I'm going to put a number out there. After about a year of genuinely good repetitive experimentation, your team is going to deflate a little bit if they're constantly having to search and interview and find new problems, if they haven't really done a great job solving the ones they've already found. We ran this at Intuit quite a bit. We know the big chunky problems, so let us solve. The build, measure, learn cycle, which is great. Earlier teams need to do that. The learn part is oversold a little bit because at a certain point, you're going to know what's wrong. You're going to know what the problems are, and it takes a lot of effort to go and solve them. So my position is build a premise and just keep chasing that path, I guess, that avenue, and eventually you'll kind of taper out and you'll find a new one. That's why marketers are going to be employed forever. That's my point of view, because this always changes. Not only does it change based on, like I said, your industry, as you scale up, it changes. So, early stage, companies going after early adopters, people more willing to try something new. You may lean into trust a little bit less, but as you scale up into a sort of mid-market, you're probably going to want to lean in there. You're probably going to want to lean into pricing as you start working with people who are competitive, right? All of this changes even from like business stage and growth stage. So a lot of work to do. It never goes away. You just have to keep experimenting, keep driving.
I love this table so much because it applies, like you said, to any industry at any stage of growth. It just helps you focus on what is your biggest lever at the moment, especially for smaller teams that need to just really ruthlessly prioritize.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, especially in SaaS, you might start focusing on the suitability, the solution fit, the specs, the benefits. But if you're going for enterprise sales, actually, you should be working on the trust bit and making sure that you look like you know what you're doing. And
You're right. It does help with the focus. That's a good way to put it. It really does help your team focus and prioritize on what works. Another thing you can do as a leader, as your teams begin to experiment, is ask for that focus. Hey, we got a lot of wins in this category. It looks like what you're presenting today on this page for experiments is diverting from that. Can you explain that? Like, it sounds like we've got a premise that's working for us. Why would we shift over? And if they can't explain it, I think it's your duty as a leader to say, well, okay, why don't we focus on where we're finding growth, right?
I wonder how much, this is a question for you. I think
Sure.
when you have smaller teams and you're chasing, different go-to-market motions, how much effort or time should someone dedicate to experimenting versus just going with something?
It's a great question. That's a great question. So even my role at Intuit, Robert, I was building the experiment program at Intuit, but I was also responsible for revenue. Like, I had a day job. I had 65 million in revenue I had to manage. We had 14 million visitors hit us every year, which is great, by the way, because when it came up through startups, do you know what I would have done for 14 million visitors? So yeah, it was a mind shift for me coming up through enterprise. I mean, I think what's behind your question is what can we be doing to I tie back to focus again, really. Like, what can we be doing to bucket our time where it belongs best? Because I mentioned, like, I call it my day job because I'm responsible for numbers, but I'm also responsible for experiments. I'm going to put a number and say 30%. I'm going to be the guy that puts a number on the wall. Even building that program, I didn't spend my whole week doing it. I probably spent about 60% of my time, but it was my mandate. It was very important to my role. For teams, lean teams, like early stage startups, you should probably be spending what does 30% mean? Probably 2 days a week, really focused on driving experiments, building the prototypes, sharing. There's a lot of socializing going on, experimentation, as there should be. It's not just building. You got to talk to people, build it up, running the interviews, talking to people. I think what you're going to find is if you're nervous about, actually, I get this from leaders a lot. Hey, I'm nervous that if I ask my team to experiment, they're going to burn out. I'm adding to their plate. You're right. There's some upfront work to do to get the process right. There's some templates you can use. By the way, hit me up, formentor.ca. You can get all those templates, save yourselves hours. You can do that, and there is some upfront work. But I think what you're going to find is you're going to thrive in a few months when you get the pattern down, and you're no longer working on work that doesn't move the needle, that doesn't work. You're focused, and you're actually, driving the numbers that you're measured against as your performance measures. As employees, founders will be happy because the teams are focused, actually working on the right work. I would make that trade any day, right? I would do that work up front to build the team reps and to get the skills in there to help experiment and run those things. And then what's 2 days a week if you're doing the right work and growing the company and working? That's my point of view. Do the work and get the work down. And it's not going to be the same for everyone. We should talk about that. Experimentation as a discipline is not as accessible to every member of your org. And you should be appreciating that as a leader. So web folks, like me, CROs, there's endless real estate to test on the web, right? That's why there's so many platforms. There's pricing pages, there's home pages, there's endless space for experimentation, tons of traffic. So experimentation tends to really work really, really well on the web and certainly in apps because there's that much more real estate and stuff to do. That's fine. So it's more accessible. There are platforms, resources, conferences. I spoke at one. There's all sorts of options to test in this room and to learn and do all that. But move over into other areas of marketing or product like email or lifecycle or retention. Of course, you can still experiment. It's just not as accessible, right? And for A/B tests, for example, you're not going to find a lot of dedicated experimentation platforms. In fact, what's going to happen is you're going to find A/B tests as a feature built into your native platform. So like Klaviyo or Braze, we used quite a bit. Those platforms will have their own A/B testing functionality built in. But you know what I mean? It's not a dedicated platform purely to experimentation. And the further out you go, kind of the harder it gets. The point is, as a leader and as a founder, you want to make sure that you're appreciative of that gap. You don't want to frustrate people by saying, hey, our CRO over here ran 60 experiments this month. That's great. How come you only ran 10? How come yours didn't come out as much? How come your lift is smaller than theirs? It's going to be. I would much rather see you evaluate contribution, evaluate effort, evaluate, hey, you may not have run as many experiments, but Melody over here in email and lifecycle, she helped us improve our prototypes on web and even our ads because she shared these insights she got from her space, and that amplified the wins elsewhere. That's the real amplification from experiments. Those different varied points of view from everyone else contributing in a structured way so that everyone's prototypes, everyone's work is that much stronger and you're sharing wins across the board. It's great if email or lifecycle or whoever doesn't have the ability to run that many tests, but they're still in the room, they're still solving, and they're still contributing to the body of work as a whole. To me, that's perfect.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what great looks like. If founders want to know what great looks like, it's that. People in the room, humming, sharing ideas, and helping each other win, and you're all evaluated on that global effort, not just the, did you get 10% lift this month? That's frustrating.
Absolutely. It's exercising that experimenting muscle and creating that psychological safety and incentivizing them to take initiative and ownership for their jobs because they're the ones who know they can take the best bets in their specific areas. As a leader, you can't say, I need you to experiment on this. It's just give them permission and see what they come up with. Yeah, I think that's great. In terms of, this is a great segue also into our chat about how to build confidence in a big idea, even before you have a lot of traffic and dashboards and tooling and things. And I have an evidence ladder that you can walk through.
Yeah, we do. So why do this? Again, what we're ultimately trying to do when you talk about confidence is, I'm going to talk about this from the leader's point of view because I know your listenership. What I think you want to hear here is how do I give teams permission to run their own experiments and give them some autonomy? That's what they want. They crave that autonomy to make some decisions on their own. As a leader, how do I remove myself from making all those decisions, but still remain, like you said, confident that what we're building is going to work? There's 4 elements to experiment priority. You call it an evidence ladder. That's great. You want to make sure you're doing a couple things correctly. You want to be prioritizing for effect first.
Mm-hmm.
How big is this going to be? So I talk a lot about segmentation. If we're going to run an experiment that's going to have a tiny lift, let's call it 1% for a tiny segment over here of customers we already have, so it's not net new revenue, and it's going to solve their problem, but it's going to be a really small, tiny lift. I know that makes us feel good to solve those problems, but it's not going to move the needle for the business because it's going to be hundreds, not thousands of users, no new revenue, and it's not that relevant to the business. So we would evaluate that experiment as low effect. It can still make your plate. And by the way, I'll return to this, but my point of view is what we call a balanced plate. I'll get to that. You do want to run a few of those experiments. There are learnings there, and we'll get to it. But you want to prioritize the other side first. You want to prioritize big effect. So again, early stage, it's okay to be going for those global numbers before you segment. Do we have an opportunity here? It's a massive test. It's a complete overhaul of our homepage. And we expect, based on earlier experiments, evidence, like I said, that discovery, those heat maps, the research, the evidence tells us we think we have a really big winner that could be in the category of like 8, 9, 10% lift. That belongs on page 1. So start with effect. What's going to move the needle the most? And often it's that boldness. It's evidence that shows us it might work. That's the next piece. That's evidence, right? So first is effect, then evidence. How confident are we? This idea we have, this hypothesis, is actually going to bear fruit and be a positive outcome rather than negative or flat. That's the thing I try to sell. We have to do that early research. Talk to some customers, put an early wireframe prototype in front of people and say, what would you think about this? Would you do this? If they say, yeah, that sounds great, go for it. If they say, I don't get it, don't launch the A/B test, right? That's what I mean when I say I see lean teams too often just throwing it up on an A/B test, hoping it'll work. It's a huge waste of time, customer time, traffic. You have to have a little bit of early evidence that it's going to work. I find, if I can share my experience, designers tend to be really great at this. It's like a skill they have. They solve customer problems in the first place. They're great at leading conversations with customers, participants, whatever, to say, hey, like, walk me through this. What's your thinking? Why'd you click that? What's going here, without leading? So you want some of that early evidence before you ever launch an A/B test that may lose. You want some confidence. Even with evidence, guys, you're going to lose. It's fine, but do the work, justify the A/B test. Then comes effort. How hard is it to build? Right? I mean, in SaaS, of course, we've got all sorts of tools these days that I didn't have when I was coming up, like vibe coding and all that. Great, good for you. It's easier than ever to build prototypes. It must be nice. Back in my day, we had to actually code stuff. So, how hard kids these days? How hard is it, right, to build the thing we want to build? This is a whole podcast on itself, by the way, but you need to have your leaders own that number. So I would never, as a marketer, say, oh, that's easy. You get yourself into a lot of trouble. Go ask your partners, go ask your leads, hey, developer, like lead developer, how long would putting this variant up on our site take? How easy would it be to build this into our pricing page? You don't know. You're not a developer. So the same goes for design. I would ask design, hey, we want to completely redo our pricing page. It should look like this because we have evidence saying customers are missing this tier. We want to launch it. How long would this take to design and test and validate? And they're going to tell you, and you should trust that number. That's the effort valuation. So you put that next to your test as well and say, well, this is a big one. This would take many teams to do. We need some fresh code we've never written before. We need to solve some problems, and it'll probably take anywhere from 3 to 4 sprints to build it. Oof, that's a big lift, right? Is it worth doing that if it's not a big effect? If it's not a big effect and it's a big effort, that doesn't feel like a good idea. By the way, you've seen this before in frameworks like Sean Ellis. He talks about ICE, like ICE, impact, confidence, and ease. That's great. It's a good model. But what I see people doing all the time that you can't be doing is what do you call it? Like scoring it or adding it up. Okay, it's a 2 in impact, it's a 3 in confidence, and a 5 in ease. And I already forgot my numbers, but you add that up and it comes out to a total. That is brutal, and you're hurting yourself doing that.
And confident is so subjective. That's like
it's not. That's the evidence piece. I call it evidence, not confidence. Okay. That's what I call it. Now, adding those numbers up might sound smart. It's not. It doesn't help you build a balanced plate. So let's talk about that. However big your team is, you can only put so much work through in a sprint. Fine. know what the number is, know what your team's capable of delivering on a sprint, and then build a balanced plate of really high effect ranked experiments there. You'll only be able to fit a few, I promise. I know I've done enough. You'll only be able to fit a few big experiments on your plate at once, right? But you need to add in some other stuff to balance that plate as well. So really risky ones that are high build, but really high output, put a few in there. What about some small gimmies? Some, hey, we know we got to fix this. Tons of evidence. This is like a 10 in confidence and evidence. We know it's going to work. It's not going to lead to a lot of lift, but we hear about it all the time. Let's just fix it, right? It's not high effect. Okay, but you owe your team a balanced plate. You owe them some success. Build a balanced plate so you're motivating and not burning your team out chasing things that are hard to build, hard to launch. And I had a fourth one, Melody. This is me with my experience leading experimentation. I get a chuckle out of this, but I'm dead serious. I call it enthusiasm, my last E. Speaking of burnout, speaking of teams that just can't do sprint number whatever X because they've just done it too often. There comes a point when your team has generated the ideas, run the tests, hit some wins, hit some failures, and it's just too much, and they're not doing the work that lights them up. I suggest, as one of your actual elements on your like rating scheme and your backlog, on your test card, all that work, I suggest you actually rank enthusiasm. I used to call it love, call it enthusiasm. Is this something that one person thinks is a really good idea? Like when I say Bob from marketing, does Bob from marketing really think this is a strong idea? It's not idea ownership. He just really supports it. Okay, put that on the card. Is this something that an entire team really thinks is great? Like Lifecycle says, hey, ads folks, we're hearing about this idea all the time in support and in tickets. We want to help people figure this out. We think it's going to work really well in ads. We are really behind this idea. Regardless of your effect or effort sizes, we think this is a great idea. For these reasons, we love it. I think what you're going to find happens when you add in onto your balanced plate a couple of experiments that may be low lift, whatever, but people love them. You're going to find way more participation. People will join your meetings. They'll show up. They'll do the work because they go, whoa, our pricing PM added my goofy test, the one that I think is really going to work. I can't believe it. It made the list. We're going to do this. And they're going to watch. And they're going to tune into your Slack channel talking about experiments. And they're going to listen and they're going to participate. And it's such a small change, but it did everything for participation. People cared because they're watching their friends' ideas. They're watching their ideas. They're watching things make the backlog on a balanced plate, even against the heavy hitters, the massive experiments worth weeks and weeks of work. And it's so motivating and enjoyable to watch that happen. And it is absolutely worth the couple story points you're going to invest into a sprint to get people to watch and learn and participate. It is so worth it. That is a big piece of advice I'd share to this pod is get people sharing their enthusiasm.
That's so cool. That's something I don't think I've heard ever before.
It's subjective and we're not supposed to do that, but there you go. I'm breaking rules.
But I mean, team motivation is something that's really hard to put your finger on other than qualitative feedback. So amazing. Did you have another slide you wanted to share about strategic experimentation?
Oh yeah, we talked about strategy. Sure.
I think,
For sure, the number one question I get from clients about these are clients already running experiments. They say it a couple different ways, like, hey, we could be more strategic with our work, with our experiments. We could focus more. I think what they're doing is they're alluding to the same concept here, and it is we're doing sort of ad hoc testing. Our ideas are coming from the corners. We don't really have any. I talk a lot about premise. We don't have a lot of connective tissue between the experiments, so we could be more focused. I think I've done this a long time. I think a lot of this comes from the fact that when we experiment, we kind of go against the grain in decision making. What I mean is, day to day, when we make decisions, we find something, we kind of poke it, we test it, and then we make a decision. That's fine. In practice, in science, we actually have to invert that. You want to make your decision first. We don't research and judge and get, because what it does is it generates debate. So the right way to do it is we want to make our decision first and say, hey, guess what? We've got a great experiment idea. We believe this feature set belongs over here. And we're going to change our pricing models. Marketers, you might believe you belong in a brand new channel. And we want to go test that. Lifecycle folks, you might believe there's a whole category of, I don't know, transactional emails that isn't working and you got to shift it over here. Whatever that big idea is, you got to commit first. So you say, if we go chase this channel and it works out and it's validated and we prove it in experiment, then we're going to do this. Put it on paper. Agree. Socialize that before you even run the experiment. Hey, peers, stakeholders, leaders, here's what we're going to do if a result looks like this. In fact, I use a tree. I use a set of ranges that explains what we do. We either like accelerate things through. That way, people are lined up from the beginning. You don't debate the outcome when it happens. Because remember, we all come from different backgrounds. I know we're all data driven. Everyone's LinkedIn has data driven. Good for you, right? But we had different goals. My goal was revenue. My partner's goal was no more support tickets. My design partner's goal was, graceful experiences. Do you think we're going to interpret the same result the same way? No, we're not. We're going to debate it. And debate is the absolute number one killer of speed for experiment teams. It's not build. It's not test time. It's debate. So stop it. Make your decision out front, agree to it, and then run the test. Run the experiment, and when it validates for you and shows you that the idea is great, good for you, launch it like you said you would. Or don't. If you said, hey, we're not going to launch this if it doesn't get us at least X lift, you all have to agree to that. Say, great, we're not going to launch it. But decide first. And I know that feels odd for folks in the space, but that's how you do this in a speedy way. And that's strategic experimentation. So I actually go here. This is the revenue piece. If you're making decisions on what to work on and you're prioritizing, I find this really helpful. This card's quite popular. What we're doing is, rather than pulling ideas from just the air and nowhere, this is say, hey, maybe we should change this. Focus in an area and then generate ideas in that area. So the activities change. That's why I bring this up. If you're searching for brand new business and you're trying to find brand new customers to your brand, that's advertising. That's top funnel. That's marketing. And those are very different activities than, for example, hey, we lost a lot of customers this month. Something's happening in our product that people aren't enjoying. We got to go dig there and save revenue, like net revenue retention. That's a different set of activities altogether and a different set of experiments. So if you want to be strategic about your experimentation, ask your team to go chase a component of your growth goal, your growth measure. Brand new business, upgrade, but if you're in like accounts-based B2B, is there expansion revenue you can be chasing? Like, you've got customers, what can we be doing to add more seats? Those are very different areas to practice. And as a leader, what I would suggest is you tap that and say, hey, our area of focus right now is growth and revenue, but we want to focus on, like I said, net new, brand new. Let's get some more subscribers then, brand new. And you'll have your team hit the whiteboard and focus on that area, generate great ideas in that area, talk to customers, and focus there. So you start with that business goal, which is here at the top. Then you figure out how you measure it. Great. Well, what's our measure then? And it's honestly, it's one of these. It's really easy to figure out. Once you know which component of revenue, that's your metric. And you go generate some hypotheses. Go figure it out. That's how you focus. That's how you set priority, and that's how you stay in the lane of generating. And you'll get to a limit. I would put a number next to it. Mm-hmm. I would say, great, we want to go chase. Typically you want a couple components to a growth metric. You want a time, 30 days, 60 days. You want an action, so we want users to take a certain action. That's the thing you can measure in the market. Add to cart, purchase, sign up, upgrade from free to paid. That's the action you can take. And then, typically you want to segment that as well. I talk a lot about segments. You want it to be an identifiable customer doing that action. So it might be net new customers never seen before, starting a free plan in the last 60 days. That's a great growth metric. It's easy, it's identifiable. Lots of people can participate with it. What you don't want to say is make $100,000 next month. Oof. Okay, yeah. I'll try. Be really specific with your growth metric, at a time component, at a segment. Yeah.
Love it. We have just a few minutes left, so I've got a couple of rapid fire questions for you, Rhys.
Oh boy.
We wrap up. Here's a fun one. What's one experiment you'd ban from early stage teams?
Ban? Like, don't do it?
Don't do it.
Oh gosh, anything copywriting related, probably. Like endless debate over copywriting, what belongs on the page. Yeah, it's not enough to move the needle unless it's like your heading. You know what I mean? If you're noodling over copywriting, you're changing your button labels or whatever, endless debate, and it just slows you down. I suggest you make big, bold, massive changes to your page and see if they iron out. If then you want to go back and finesse your copywriting, you can, but it's a big that's a big time waster. I wouldn't do it. I would focus on the things that really, if it's big enough, like it's a big value prop change, or you're making a massive claim you haven't made before, that's different. Yeah. Like if you're tweaking words, no, you're wasting your time.
It's so funny because I think that's what a lot of founders get hung up on the most, because it's like, it's your front page, right?
I'm a big fan of, if you've ever listened to Emma Stratton, she's a copywriter. She's great. She's on a lot of pods. She'll say the same thing, and she does copywriting for a living, and she'll tell you, like, stop tweaking, go for the big phrases, get rid of vagueness, like go over something really real. Yeah.
Right. Amazing. Maybe one other question before we wrap up. Which experiment consistently delivers ROI, but most teams skip it?
Oh, interviews. Interviews are, I know I have a lot of analogies. Interviews is the flossing of experiments. We all know we should be doing it. Everyone knows it. When's the last time you flossed? Like, you have to be talking to customers regularly. Let me tell you why it matters. Intuit, probably my second year at Intuit, we were launching a service side of the business. So everyone knows TurboTax is software, but we were launching the experts do your taxes for you model, which is massive. A huge new market for us. It was everyone's priority. My team, under me, we designed, Melody, what I would claim to be my best ever, most optimized CRO, everything, every detail page. I was so proud of it, and it bombed. We couldn't figure out what we were doing wrong. We did our best work. And so I flagged it. I said, guys, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. Let's go ask some customers. And to a name, I know I say 5 to 8 customers, but we interviewed like 20. I'm pretty sure 20 out of 20 eventually brought up, well, this is all great and it sounds valuable and all that, but I don't know how to start. How do I call you? And we go, call me. Now, this might not sound that novel, but believe it, at Intuit at this time, you couldn't find a phone number anywhere. We didn't have it. We don't have people picking up phones. That doesn't exist. What I'd forgotten on our sort of, I call it like the three-legged stool of confidence. Like, we've broken that trust between the thing that I know to work on a great looking landing page. We changed the customer. We weren't selling to software using tax filers. We were selling to people who knew how to talk to a human, introduce themselves, they have a name, whatever. And so the process was completely broken to them. These customers had no idea that you sign up, create an account. I know it sounds novel, but this audience didn't like the idea of creating an account with your email and password to start filing their taxes. That was not the way they would file their taxes. This small insight gathered from, 20 interviews, I was in the room for this, was a multi-year, like $20 million investment into a whole new phone team and an onboarding team. It's the second step of this massive process now at Intuit today, is getting on the phone. And it wouldn't have existed if we didn't just get some people in a room and say, oh, hey, guess what? You have to interview. You don't know what you don't know. You got to interview people, make it a habit.
Amazing. That's such a big bold learning.
Massive. Yeah.
Amazing. So many great takeaways from the show today. If I could boil it down to top 3, it would be that A/B testing is not your starting point. You have to build a bolder prototype. Business significance is more important than statistical significance, especially early on.
Focus,
Yeah. And leadership is about being safe to be wrong on purpose.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So Rhys, like, where can we find you? Where can our listeners find you?
Oh, it's great. I'm here cheering on the Jays in Toronto. We'll see how that pans out. I'm at formentor.ca. That's my service. What I love to do is teach teams how to do this. I offer a great workshop that helps you feel safe in the room, make great decisions, come up with great ideas, and then actually run them through as experiments with your org and get some lift out of it. It's great.
Amazing. It was great having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Very lovely to be here. Thank you, Melody.